Do we bring coffee on our walk? Yes, we do. Get our steps in, start to get our steps in. Alright, so bugging out is a sexy YouTube thing. You know, we show off our bags, what we're going to carry. We talk about METTC and all this. And I've had people ask me to build bug out bags for them. I've had neighbors even offer to pay me. They're like, tell me how much you want to build me a box and some bags I can take with me. And I will pay for everything, including your time. So my first question is, okay, why are you leaving and where are you going? And you know, I could just take people's money, sure, but if I actually want to help people, I'm gonna have a bunch of questions. So let's talk about the why. Why are you bugging out? Well, we can get to the circumstances in a minute, but here's my philosophy on that. If I have a house and I'm in a secure location or a defensible location, in my house, I'm going to have everything I need to live. It's my house. I might have a second structure, like a barn or a tool shed, where I can store things, including extra food and stuff. It's my home. It's where I can take care of my family. We can be safe at night. We're not running around out in the woods trying to homestead all over again. So the question is, why would I leave that? Why would I leave security and a known area like that I can patrol and control? I know how I can get food. I know how I can get in and out. And I also have all kinds of storage. Why would I leave that? So growing up on the Gulf Coast, you know, the best example I like to think about is hurricanes and floods. You know, 99% of Southerners do not leave during a hurricane, even the bad ones. Where we're at here, it's wildfires. Multiple giant fires every single year. Everybody I know, they're like, yeah, we're staying here. We got open fields we can sit in. A lot of people have bunkers, old wine cellars built into the earth they can get into. Very few people plan on leaving, despite walls of fire and smoke coming at them, and you just don't know what's going to happen. You think you're safe because you have cleared your land, and then the fire just spreads through the treetops. It's an amazing sight. A lot of things will be unstable after that, you know, broken gas lines, water pipes, and yet people don't run. So if we look at what actually happens all throughout the year to millions of people, why are we bugging out? Why are we leaving? You have a structure. If the structure survives the event and your stuff is still there, why would you leave? If you're by yourself and you like extended camping, I can see why that might be fun, but who's gonna guard your house while you're running? You know, if you just had some kind of crisis and you're out playing in the woods, you know, building forts and whittling sticks and stuff, somebody's going to come find your house and notice you're not there. To make it hit home even more, if you have a family, possibly little kids, why are you leaving that home with that family? You're going to make everybody carry a 70-pound ruck and just go freaking running around through the woods. You don't even know what the hell's out there, how you're going to eat, where you're going to go. So I'm not picking on people. I'm not judging. Again, we're philosophizing. That's what we do here. So now we should be realizing that, no, you're most likely going to stay home. Unless, you know, we're talking about a disaster. Like I know a lot of people on the coast who did run from hurricanes, but they went up north a little bit and crashed in a hotel for a week or two, and then they came back. Or they'd go up north and stay with some family for a couple weeks. So I think if we look at this realistically, now we know that, let's get past the YouTube sectionist, you're not going anywhere. Okay, so let's talk about the times where you might leave and what you're going to take. And then we can actually make that practical. So you're going to bring a vehicle. Okay, so you should have a bug out box. You should have these big old freaking 40, 50 gallon totes that you just put a whole bunch of extra crap in. Leave it somewhere where it's not going to be messed with, and then when that event comes, you just pick it up, throw it in your truck, and get out of there. Maybe you have a checklist duct taped to it, so you can just look at that. Okay, this is all the last minute things we got to add to this, and then we're out of here. You know, checklists are good in emergencies because people tend to not think properly anymore. So basically, you just Go by the numbers and you'll be okay. So what should be in that box? And you could apply this to the hurricane stuff too. You're going to escape in your car, all right? You're not going to be running around on foot, you know, from a storm when everything else is normal on foot. It's not happening. Maybe once your house is destroyed and the water level's at 30 and you got to swim out of there, yeah, you're not driving anymore, okay? But kind of by that point, it's a little too late. We're talking about the prepared people who actually plan. So if you find yourself trapped in your rooftop, cutting a hole through the ceiling to get out, you made a lot of other bad decisions and you are not prepared at all. You failed to plan, so that means you planned to fail. But in this normal case, if we're talking about just something is coming and you don't think your house is going to survive and you make that decision as a father, as a man, as a leader, okay, guys, we're going to leave. What should be in there? All right. Well, I don't think it has to be this doomsday loadout that a lot of people are looking at. You should have some kind of security, and depending on where you're going, it could be a rifle, it could be a pistol. You got an extra pistol, you throw it in the box with a couple magazines. You know, are you planning to go out into World War III with your family? I hope not. You probably just need a pistol just in case the looters come after the storm. Maybe your car breaks down and you're worried about, you know, some meth head or squatter in the woods is going to try to take your stuff. You know, I mean, are you really going to run out to a shelter with a battle rifle? You might not be allowed to go there. But I just gave it away. So where are we going? Okay, well, if you're running from somewhere before it comes, you're most likely going to a hotel, friends or neighbor's house, or like a shelter. You know, if you've been to a place where they have emergencies, they already have designated shelters. You know, it's going to be like the gymnasiums at the schools, or the schools themselves, could be the big churches. You have warehouses where people will set up little shelters. In Katrina, it was the Superdome a lot of people went to. Would not want to go there. You know, but there's going to be a designated place where most people already know where to go. Okay, so that means there's most likely going to be a cot there. If not, you might want to plan to bring your own sleeping mats. You don't want your kids or you know, sleeping on a cold floor because the shelter doesn't have mats. Okay, little inflatable sleeping mats. Piece of cake, man. Throw those in the box. What else do we need there? Well, probably some blankets. You know, we don't want to depend on the shelter for the blankets, okay? Throw a couple blankets in there. Piece of cake. Probably don't need an assault bag with 70 pounds of gear because we're not sleeping out in the woods. They're probably going to have food. You might want to throw in a couple MREs and some camping food. Some of these like prepper boxes and stuff. And that's really just to give you some sustenance during your trip to get to that shelter. And then maybe have some backups, you know, just in case the shelter's not doing too well, you know, or you see a family who's just starving, they've got nothing. Okay, fine. Let them have the food from the shelter or whatever the National Guard brings out, and you've got your family taken care of. So I know the people who have never been in situations like this, they're like, wow, the people at the shelter are going to be raping and pillaging and stealing your stuff. Like, no, guys, those are extreme cases. You know, like in the Superdome during Katrina. That was a dire situation. It was horrible. But for the most part, everybody's living there in close quarters and most people got along, you know. But if you pack thousands of people into a freaking stadium with no power and overflowing toilets, like, yeah, it's not going to be good. So I wouldn't want to go to a giant freaking rigged shelter like that in a city. Wouldn't want to live in a city in the first place anyway. So that brings up another point. Why are we bugging out? Well, maybe you are in the city. Okay. If any kind of disaster happens or man-made issue, the cities will be bad, but they're only going to be bad for a while. Eventually, the National Guard or somebody's going to come in and restore order. It's, guys, it's human nature. It's what we do. Nobody wants to go back to, you know, primitive times and live in a city that way. Somebody's going to take over, and there will be law and order. Most likely, it's going to be the government and law enforcement. Why? Because we already have that established. Why recreate the wheel? Okay. But if I'm living in a metro area, all right, that I might want to get out of there, but I'm probably going to find friends or family, you know, out in the hills to crash with. So again, what has to be in my box? Well, enough food and water to get me there, at least a couple days worth. Maybe a backpack or two for the family, just in case we break down and we have to grab a small little camping kit to get away from our vehicle. But You know, we could what if this all day long, but why is your vehicle breaking down? Did you not do maintenance on it? Did you not take care of it and make sure it was ready to go? You know, people run out of gas in emergencies. Why? Why isn't your car full? Your fuel tank should be full every single time you come home because of situations like this, especially most disasters we see coming. Okay, so if you see something coming and you're not filling up all your gas tanks and some extra gas cans, again, you are specifically setting yourself and your family up for failure. It's not hard to go fill up your gas tank before an event and get a couple gas cans in there. It's really not, guys. And if you do it early enough, you will avoid the crowds. Those big old long lines outside the gas stations. Those are all the people who are unprepared. And unfortunately, it's too many. Now that we look at it realistically, if you're going to leave, you know, depending on the size of your family or how many people you got, it's most likely going to be a tote or two full of some supplies to get you to that next location. Hey, there they are. You guys barking at me. With that being said, you've got a plan for your pets. You might want to take your pets with you. That'd be a bummer to escape with your family and leave your freaking pets behind. Which brings up another consideration. Will your shelter or wherever you're going allow pets? There's the other one. All these factors should be considered in advance. You know, otherwise, again, fail to plan, you plan to fail. The best home alarms you could ever have. Big old hound dogs. They'll let you know if something's coming and they will tear it to pieces if it keeps coming. One last factor. You know, I got Redneck Bob freaking outfit on. UF Pro tactical pants because we're playing with those. Rain boots, 2 pairs of socks because it's cold. I want my feet to stay dry. And a freaking flannel jacket, man. When you see the bug out stuff, it's mostly, you know, tactical stuff, plate carriers and helmets. And I just want to ask these guys, where are you going like that? Okay, so if you're talking about fantasy land where you're going to just ditch your family and go out and fight, by yourself, you know, leave your homestead and just go out and fight. Say that in the beginning, okay? Say, well, we're talking about the 0.00001% chance that I'm going to ditch my family and go fight. Say that up front, because when you're talking about bugging out and you mention, you know, preparedness and emergencies and stuff, and you're talking about plate carriers and all this tactical gear, battle rifles and stuff, like, that's absolutely ridiculous. So number one, wherever you go like that, people will be worried about you, you know. And I know it's messed up. Wow, well, they shouldn't care. It should be America. It's like, okay, well, if a freaking hurricane just came through and people just need food and water and some gas for their generators, and then here comes tactical freaking Ranger Joe down the street with a plate carrier and 10 mags on him, and, you know, he looks like he's going to Ramadi. Yeah, I would be watching that dude too, because he does not fit the environment. The law enforcement will be watching you. Sure, they shouldn't legally be allowed to arrest you for going out that way, but they're definitely going to keep their eye on you, and they should. Because I'm sitting there with my family, we're in a shelter, hanging out, we got warm coffee, you know, we're just worried about the house and the insurance and the aftermath. This is how millions of people deal with this shit every year. Then we got Delta Dan coming out down the street. All the hurricane victims are just seeing Tactical Dan walking around. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You know, so I get it. There's a YouTube sexiness around that. Like, oh, the apocalypse is here. I got to go out in my one-man army and fight it. It's like, okay, say that up front, or you're being dishonest, or you're just being silly. Southern Mississippi, anywhere along the Gulf Coast, I could go to Walmart like this. It's totally normal. Nobody gives a shit. But depending on the environment, you know, we talk about this gray man stuff. Why not just wear regular clothes? You can have regular looking clothes that are also flame resistant or tough, just in case that 1% chance comes, you got to ditch your vehicle and head into the woods with your family. But the Delta Dan stuff, you know, for basic everyday preparedness, it's, you guys can do what you want, you know. It is still a free country in most states. I'm glad you see people thinking about this stuff, but just be cautious of what you're following on YouTube and what you're listening to, because, you know, showing up as, you know, Ranger Rick with all your gear on when there's just a natural disaster that happened, like, I'm not saying you deserve to get in trouble, but you're definitely going to have some extra eyes on you, and you're definitely going to be drawing unwanted attention to you. You know, if you've escaped somewhere with your family, you want to be gray man. You just want to be a family blending in. Sure, you're going to have that pistol ready to go and loaded, you know, but you're going to be walking around a shelter or your neighbor's freaking house like this. If the need arises, okay, like after Katrina, we had looting all over the place. In my area, it wasn't really a problem. People spray painted on their plywood out there. You loot, we shoot. Okay, so I know Louisiana, they went crazy. And the internet trolls, they're like, they were rounding up guns. Like, that did not happen. If you did something stupid, you know, like somebody comes by on a boat getting rescued and you freaking brandish your weapon and point it at them, yeah, you might have some visitors after that. But even though the governor declared martial law, because it's a state of emergency, they didn't want people running around the freaking city of New Orleans, locked and loaded and armed. But guess what? Who would have enforced that? The cops were busy, the National Guard was busy, the feds were busy. It was shit that was put out in the media. They just advised people, hey, stay home, hunker down, don't be running around like friggin' Rambo. But luckily, I was in one of the free states anyway. And yeah, everybody was armed, and we all had the "you loot, we shoot" signs up, and people knew, don't be freaking screwing around, okay? After a disaster, you escalate with the situation. So if all of a sudden you've got looting and you got people screwing around, well, it's probably going to be time to escalate. But I'm not saying you shouldn't be prepared for that. I'm just saying you need to know what your parameters are, okay? So if everything's peaceful and it's just people in need, which is like 99% of the cases, it would be silly to be Delta Dan running around all kitted up, freaking stressing people out even more. They might mistake you as being one of the looters or one of the nut jobs, and they might escalate to protect themselves from you. But anyway, guys, not to poke people in the eye or step on toes or anything, you know, just some philosophizing. I think there's a YouTube sexiness, a fantasy world, and then there's what we should actually be thinking about, okay? And 99% of the time, we're not out there doing doomsday, shit hits the fan stuff. If you've actually been in disasters and stuff, you know what I'm talking about. You probably don't even need to hear this message. So, thanks for listening. I appreciate y'all. You know, get out there and be prepared, and we'll see you in the next one. Sun's coming out. You guys tracking that cat? Yeah, they're following it. Where'd that cat go?